Gold, we showed you last week that gold was making a parabolic move higher. It's made a pivot from that all-time high, pivot lower that is. So we're going to talk about buy, sell, hold, also why silver may be a better point of entry if you're looking to get into the metals. So if you've been thinking about gold, if you own gold, you're thinking about buying gold, anything of your thoughts about gold, you've got to see this, because I'm going to break down what to look for in the short term, intermediate term, and the long term, whether you're a trader or an investor in gold. Let's wrap things up and close it with gold and metals, because there is a trend change happening there. It's a short-term trend change. Don't stress. Don't worry. So last week we showed you that, we zoomed out. This is a longer-term chart of gold over the last 5 years. When you zoom out like this, you can see that it's really gotten parabolic. We showed you the last time that it consolidated and peaked out where the RSI was, and now we're making a new high. RSI looked like it was starting to cap out there. Update this week. We did see a little correction this week, starting on Monday, Tuesday. Gold has started to pull back. RSI has pulled back quite quickly. So this is a small correction in the big scale of things. Is it a buying opportunity? Should you wait? It really depends on what kind of person you are. If you're a trader, okay, if you're a trader and you know how to scalp, which is a very unique few people out there. However, if you're one of those, then you could have this dotted line I drew here, which is like the uber bull parabolic. If gold is still meant to go to 4,000 before getting down to, let's say, 3,000 or 3,200, then it'll hold this line and just power higher. I did this as a dotted line because my belief in that is mediocre. I'm just pointing it out as a possibility. Eventually, what I think is the bigger, probability is gold eventually does correct back down to its mean, reversion to the mean. And whether that happens because equities start to rally back and everybody that was in gold starts to sell it and goes back to the Mag 7, I don't know. If it's because you get a parabolic move that just explodes and comes back down. Nonetheless, I do think within some relative time, gold has to come back and test a larger area of support. So if I was an investor, if I was somebody who was looking to buy gold for the long haul, then I'd be patient. I'd give it some time, let it come into you. Everybody thinks they're long-term investors until they buy something and in the next 2 weeks it goes down, relentlessly. So that long-term support line and reversion to the mean is what I'd be watching if I was wanting to buy gold. I'd also be more interested in silver. Because silver hasn't gotten away from its mean. It tends in these trends, once gold and the gold miners do their thing and they get too expensive, people who feel that they missed the trend will maybe rotate into silver. But in order for silver and silver miners to get above this resistance that they have here, you've got to continue to have probably bad news. And in that bad news, gold, especially around the tariffs, gold trades sideways and silver gets a bid. So, normally gold and silver have a tandem trade where, gold goes down, silver goes down. There are times late stage cycle like this where one's gone parabolic where they will start to decouple. And that's what I'm watching for and why I sold our gold and held on to our silver as a hope that maybe it'll play some catch up. It's performed well. So what does all this mean? Well, if you're a trader, trade away, but know how to scalp. Like I said before, that green dotted line is your tell. If you're an investor in metals, wait for a pullback to support what we call the mean. And, keep an eye on silver. It may be a better relative strength and as well as a risk reward, because at least with silver, if you notice in that chart I showed you just, one here, I'll go back. That green trend line can be really used as risk management. If you were a buyer of silver and you weren't a huge long-term believer in it, then you could use this green trend line as your stop loss. Like you buy some and then you have a discipline that if you break below it, you get out of the position, admit that you're wrong. And yeah, you can whipsaw and go back up, but if you're just able to be disciplined, you could do that. So again, that we what are we doing? We took our profits and we're going to relax on the beach for a few weeks. Barkley and I are going to go chill.